Hi, I'm Ben Johnson, and I'm the Director of Operations at Security Force. Today, we're going to talk about ProData Key. So, ProData Key is a system that it's probably our favorite access control system, to be honest. Don't tell the other companies that. But I've been using ProData Key for a very long time now, and it's just a fantastic system. Can't talk enough good about it. But, anyways, you didn't come here to hear me gush on PDK. You came here to learn about people and groups. So, that's what we're going to talk about today, right? So your screen may look slightly different. If you're logged in as an administrator, you may also have the option for integrations or for permissions. But here I'm logged in as a manager. And so you can see on my screen here, we're going to do it off of our office. You see a warning up here, which we'll get to in a different video. You've got people, groups, systems, events, auto open, live events, states, and reports. And we will look at all of those in a future video. But today we're going to talk about people and groups. So I'm actually going to start with groups. Groups are just like you'd imagine. It's groups of the people that have access to your building that have a common trait. So maybe if you have a warehouse, you might put all of your third shift employees in there. And so those third shift employees have access to certain employee doors during certain employee hours. And if that ever changes for the group, you can just make one change to the permissions in the group instead of having to make a change to each individual person. And that's what people is, right? That's the people group is individuals that have access to your building, whether it's a card or the mobile app or Bluetooth or even just a PIN code, whatever it is. People is each of the individuals that has access to your building, and groups is the groups of people that are characterized by a common trait. We're going to start with groups though, because it's kind of easier to create a group and then create a person after that. So we'll go to groups, and if this is a system that we've sold you, this should already be set up. We always do the initial programming and configuration and then training on our installs. But if for some reason this isn't set up, you'll have this blank screen here. And so we're just going to go to add group. And over here, we'll create a group called test. You can make this group anything that you want. I do recommend that you make it a name that's logical so you know what the group rights are or what the common trait is, something. So back to that warehouse, you might call the group third shift warehouse. You might also call it IT or pharmacy or anything like that, depending on what your building is. But it's people who share a common trait, and then because of that common trait, have common access rights. We're going to call it test. Now, we haven't created any people yet, so there's no members to add. So we'll leave this section blank. We'll go ahead and hit save. And so here we go. So now we are in our group, and we can start building the group out. And again, you see here, there's also a place to add members. The excellent thing about PDK is that I can add people to a group as members, or I can add a group to people, which is how we're going to do it later on. So the first thing we need to do is assign them an access control rule, right? Access control system isn't any good if it doesn't have any rules of what people can do. So we'll add a rule, and we can choose access control, elevators, events, or anti-passback. These last three rules, most often you're going to have us help you with. Events are triggers and events that happen, but sometimes they get a little bit tricky, and for all of our customers, that kind of tech support is just free. That's part of our privilege of having you as a customer, is that we do things like that. Anti-passback, same deal. We will gladly help you set that up. You can just call into the office, send an email to your sales guy, send an email to me, whoever you want, and we'll help you get set up. But for this rule, we're going to decide that it's going to be a recurring event. Let's do that third floor warehouse, or that third floor manufacturing facility, right? So your choices are always recurring and single date. So single date might be if I was going to do an open house, then maybe May the 5th of 2026. I could create a single date here, and I would set the time and everything up. Recurring is most common because that's typically every Monday through Friday. You can click on days. If they're orange, they're highlighted. If they're not orange, they're not highlighted. So in this case, I've got all 7 days checked, but maybe our third shift crew doesn't work Tuesdays or Wednesdays. But if they do work Monday night third shift, we do still need Tuesday checked because that does go into Tuesday morning. And then you have your begin and your end. So we do use the 24-hour time in PDK. So anything after noon is going to have 12 added to it. So 1 o'clock p.m. is 1300 hours. And here it's hours, minutes, and seconds. I've never seen anybody that got granular down to the second, but hey, you know what? You do you if that's what you want to do. But we're going to say that they're going to have access, and we can just scroll down here, and we'll say that they all come in starting at 8 o'clock. Now, our end time, even though they don't get off at midnight, our end time is going to be 2400 because that's the end of the day. And so in that case, we are actually going to go ahead and uncheck Tuesday. That was a mistake I made a second ago. So, well, let's just say they're only off Wednesdays. We'll leave Tuesday checked. So now what this says is from 8 o'clock p.m. until midnight, every one of these days, a person can use a card, and you can also do a PIN code, a card or PIN, or a card and then PIN. Card and then PIN is going to be the most secure here. That's where you have to swipe your credential, and then you also type in a PIN number. Card or PIN and PIN are both fairly unsecured just because, you know, once you tell somebody your PIN number, they always have it, right? You never can get that back. Typically, we recommend that you don't use PIN codes unless it's a low security device or it's in tandem with the card, or it's maybe an interior door or something like that that already has other layers of security behind it. So we're going to leave this as card, and then we're going to add some devices. And so I have here a demo door, our front door, and our material cage. So let's pick these two doors here, and we'll go ahead and save them. So now we can see that every day but Wednesday from 8 o'clock p.m. to midnight, people can use a card, and ProDataKey considers the mobile app the same as a card. So if you are issuing Bluetooth credentials or issuing the mobile app, which we'll talk about later, that's the same as a card. They have it to the front door of the material cage, and we're going to allow them to get in there. So now I'm going to go ahead and submit. And so here we go. So here's our rule. It's called test. Life's great. And we can go back to groups here and see that rule is here now. It no longer says you have no groups. But let's go back one more. So you can see up here there is the progressive bar of each page, and as you get deeper, it builds out. So you can always click back to whatever page you want to go to, or if you want to go back to the main screen, you can just click the PDK logo. So here we go. We're back on the first page. You've got groups here, and now you've got people. And we have 8 people. So let's add a people. We're going to add John Smith. And we're going to assign John a key fob. Let's give him key fob number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we need to add him to a group. And look, if we click on add to group, there's our test group. If you had multiple groups here, they'd all be listed and you could select whichever ones you wanted. If you accidentally add them to a group and don't want them there, you just click the X box and there you go. So add test back in there and now they're in groups. So John Smith has a card number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, this could also be a key fob. He's in the test group. You can add a photo. You can either drag a photo on top here, you can click to upload, or if you're doing this in the mobile app, you can actually use your camera and take a photo right then. Then you have an active date and an expire date. Those are pretty uncommon for employees. Typically, you're going to use it for maybe a contractor, right? Let's say you've got a painting crew coming in, and they're going to be working on hours that you're closed, so they need access to the building. So you may issue some key fobs for them, give them to their project manager a week in advance. You set that active date for the day they're supposed to start, and that way they can't come early without you knowing. And then the same with the expire date. You would set the expire date for the date that they're going to be done. The one other place to use an expire date is for a higher security building. And so you might set that expiration date to be, I wouldn't do it monthly. That's pretty frequent, but maybe really high security, you do it monthly, right? It could be every 6 months, could be every year. You can pick whatever you want. And so if today is December the 26th of 2025, and I am going to make it 1 year, then I'd make December 26th of 2026. And what that does is we have a company policy that says you have to come and check in with the security office every year. And if you fail to do that, then your card expires and you can't get in. And so then that person comes in and you just make sure the picture still looks like them, make sure they still have a good credential, make sure they still have the credential that you issued to them, make sure that their groups are correct, right? Just, you're just basically doing a quick survey of their person in the system to make sure that everything's the way that it should be. And then, assuming it's all good, then you go ahead and you change that expire date to a year from then. So then it would end up being December 26th of 2027. You could certainly do that on a calendar year, but that's going to have your entire employee database expire at the same time. So I would definitely recommend that you do it on an annual basis from when you issue the card to them. And then below that, you have PIN and duress PIN. And if you recall, when I was talking about groups, you have the ability, if you have a card reader that has a keypad built into it, you can use PIN numbers. This is where you'd enter that PIN. If you enter that PIN number, it has the same rights as a key fob if you are using the PIN only or the card or PIN options. The duress PIN can actually be set up where if they put that duress PIN number into the keypad, we can make different actions happen. Most likely it's going to be a message goes out to a security officer or some sort of a lockdown even maybe happens. If you don't have keypad readers, there's no sense of putting a PIN or duress PIN in here. If you do put them in there, nothing will happen, but there's no reason to even bother putting them in there. So we're almost ready to submit, but let's say that Mr. Smith also needs to have a mobile credential. So remember, we added a card number here, so we're going to add a mobile credential. So instead of card, we're going to click mobile, but you'll see here, it says mobile credentials cannot be issued until an email address has been sent. So we're going to hit cancel, and you click up here. And so in the email address, the thing that's really important to remember here is this email address is going to email a credential to their phone. So if they're going to use their personal phone that does not have access to their company email, you're going to have to actually email this to their personal email address. So again, it has to go to an email address that they can access on their phone. Also, for some reason, they carry multiple phones. The credential is locked to the phone, so you will have to send a mobile credential to each of their phones. So we'll just type in John Smith at pdk.com. I hope they don't have John Smith working there. And then we'll hit add credential and mobile. And now, instead of having that error message, I have the option to give them a Bluetooth or a mobile app. So the Bluetooth says I can take my phone and hold it up to a reader just the same as I would a key fob or a card. And assuming that I have access to that reader, it's going to beep, read my phone, and unlock the door. If I don't have access to that reader, then it's going to create a log in the system that says, hey, somebody tried to access this door. If it happens to know who I am, maybe I have access to other doors in the building, but not that door, it'll log that too. It's going to log whatever data that we have. Mobile app is one you want to be careful with. So the mobile app says that I can, from anywhere in the world, as long as I have internet access on my phone and there's internet access at the controller, from anywhere in the world, I can unlock a door. So typically you only want to give that to your leadership, your security personnel, maybe people who actually take a serious interest in the security of the building, because you don't want for my buddy to call me up and say, hey, I forgot my card, or I forgot my key fob. Can you let me in the building? And I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. I let him in. I have no idea if they're there alone. I have no idea what they're doing in the building, but now there's a record that I'm the person that unlocked the door. And so if something does happen, that's going to come back to me. So as an employee, That's bad for me, but as a company, it's bad for you because now something's happened and you don't even know who it was, right? So again, I typically recommend that we don't issue the mobile app outside of people in leadership or people in a security role. Um, but the Bluetooth, that's locked to your phone. So unless the person shares their actual phone, like hands their phone to someone else, uh, there's not really a security threat there. And in fact, most people, especially younger generations, are more likely to remember their phone than they are to remember their key fob. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And I see where it says pending, and I've signed in both the mobile app and the Bluetooth. If I'd only signed one or the other, it'd show that there. When they accept the credential, then it's going to allow them, it's going to show you here what kind of phone they have, and then they'll be able to use their phone for whatever it is in addition to their card. You can pretty much assign unlimited card numbers or fob numbers and unlimited mobile credentials to people. I'm sure there's a limit somewhere, but no rational person is going to get past there. So I've got all this stuff set. I'm going to delete this just in case it really was a John Smith at pdk.com. Sorry, John, if you're there. And there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And now John is created. And so it's just that easy. But let's say that I fire John, but John doesn't give me his key fob back. Well, the whole reason that we use access control systems is because when you're only using a brass key, if somebody keeps a key, they can make as many copies of it as they want. The credentials that we as security force sell are not clonable. You can't copy them. And so if they keep that credential, they have the only copy of it. And all I need to do is come over here, John, and hit disabled and save. And now John's still in the system, but you see this pretty red dot here. So he's still in the system, but he has no access to my building. But if John tries to use that key fob or that card on one of my card readers, I'm going to have a transaction log that says John Smith tried to use this card at this time on this door, access denied. So if John is a disgruntled or less than gruntled, I don't know if gruntled is a word, but if he's a disgruntled employee and he tries to come back to do harm, he can't get in the building using his own credential. But we will have a record that he did it. Now, if John did turn all of his credentials in and I wanted to reissue them, one, I would just delete the credential here, but then two, I could actually scroll all the way down and delete John as a person. I only recommend that you delete a person if you absolutely know that all of their credentials have been turned back in. Even then, a lot of times it's better to just go ahead and disable them, especially if maybe it's somebody you're going to hire back later or, again, you just want to keep a record of if they were there. But definitely don't delete a person unless you know that you have all their credentials back. So that's it. So that's the two easiest things, the things that are going to do the most common in the system, adding people and adding groups. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to us. Be happy to talk you through it. Thanks a lot and have a great day.